All right, welcome back to another episode of Designing the Best You. We are in the middle of a 3-part series, and so the middle would be, this is part 2. So if you missed last week's episode, I highly recommend going back and listening to it first. It's literally only 15 minutes, just like this week's is, okay? So as I said last week, we do focus a lot on brain health and nutrition and fitness and stress in our conversations here, but we're going to change it up again to focus on training your brain so you can think differently and achieve those health goals, which, by the way, they actually roll into other areas of your life, okay? So as we discussed last week, we tend to go through those motions of life. You don't stop to ponder and think about whether you're making the right decision or picking the best option, or here's a big one, thinking the best thoughts. Our life has become so routine and mundane that all we want to do is just get an answer from a doctor about how we feel, get an answer from a job about anything, and just go back home, sit on our couch, and just do it all over again the next day, right? And we talked about that in depth in last week's episode about limiting beliefs. I just can't seem to get it together. I'm always tired. I'm always sick. Who wants to be around me anyways? I'm just never going to be like so-and-so, right? So now we're going to take those limiting beliefs that you had from last week, and hint, I didn't tell you what to do with them, so you still have them, okay? And we're going to redefine them into ones that actually serve you, right? All those little things that we talk about in our heads, the things that actually serve you. I know there's so many messages out there about getting the right mindset, all the mindset coaches, and I'm not downing you guys, okay? I know it's overwhelming for most people. But many of you know that I like to keep things challenging yet simple. I want you to be limitless, okay? And really give yourself, yes, yourself, the best, okay? So something I read recently, actually, in a book, is that the difference between limiting beliefs and an amazing, limitless mindset is like the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. You're like, okay, Vennessa, here we go. What are we talking about? So a thermometer has one function. It reacts to the environments. It literally tells us what the temperature is, nothing else, right? Boring. But this is how so many of us react to our limiting beliefs. We're like, that it is what it is, right? And we end up restricting our lives because of it, all right? Does that make sense? So now we've got, on the other hand, a thermostat. And that thermostat gauges the environment and it makes the environment react to it. Okay, so if a thermostat notices the room is too cold, it's too hot, it changes the environment to fit the program that it was set for, right? So if you encounter an external circumstance or an internal attempt to attack you, right? You can either act like a thermostat and reject those limiting beliefs and create that new environment that aligns with your most ambitious goals, or you could just, is what it is, like a thermometer. It's whatever temperature is outside, right? So how do we minimize these crazy limiting beliefs that we have and develop an insane, amazing mindset that all these people are talking about these days, okay? So there's a few things that have helped me, and I want to share those with you. They're basically lies that are really common, and I want to, again, show you how we can change those lies, okay? So the first one is intelligence. Many of us believe it's fixed, right? We're like, oh my gosh, we love being around these people who have these big ideas, but we couldn't ever imagine coming up with those things because I'm just not there. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm dumb, right? Who's been there? I mean, most of us, we really don't think about whether we have what we call a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. We've literally carried on the same thinking pattern as our families did without even knowing it, right? A fixed mindset, I'll share with you, is just the way things are. We're powerless, for example, in our health, that most people in my family, you know what, they have diabetes or they have an autoimmune condition, and that's just the way it is. I'm just going to have one and just got to deal with it. But if you have a growth mindset, you have the ability to improve anything. So instead of taking responsibility to teach yourself what we want or we need to know, what we do is we tell ourselves it isn't necessary, or we make excuses, or we blame others or people or circumstances, or hey, COVID. And then what happens is we distract ourselves by using things that make us feel good. Okay, so let me say that again. Instead of taking responsibility to educate and empower ourselves with what we want or what we need to know, we make excuses, or we blame others, or we blame circumstances around us. Y'all, it's you. I know that stung for me in a couple areas I'm working on. What about you? Okay, y'all know I'm here to be real. Just know that intelligence is not fixed, okay? It's actually dependent on your own ability to cultivate a growth mindset. For example, start looking at your own attitude. Listen to the way you talk. What I want you to start saying is, instead of "I'm not good at this," is "I'm not good at this yet." Oh, that's good. Okay? So the second lie that we tell ourselves, and this is one that, oh man, I know it isn't true, but we still tell ourselves deep down in different ways, is that mistakes are failures. So we hear the name Einstein. Amazing, right? Brilliant and intellectual individual, right? And we think we're going to never accomplish anything like him. It's easy to assume that he never really made some massive mistakes, or Michael Jordan or Oprah or whoever you look at as being successful. Y'all, none of those people were considered a failure as a result of their mistakes. No, the important thing is they didn't let any of their mistakes stop them, because they all did experience many mistakes. And here's the thing, who remembers people for their mistakes? It's usually we remember them for their contributions. So why do we fear mistakes so much? I think a lot of times, I've been talking about this with teachers, is that when we're in school, the school system is designed, and I can go on for this for days, but our school system is designed on the fact that they judge our mistakes, right? Think about this. The number of mistakes on any given test determine whether we pass or we fail. If we're called on in class and we say the wrong answer, oh my goodness, we never want to raise our hands again, right? So we're made fun of on the playground, whatever it is, right? And unfortunately, those mistakes are not used as a tool for learning in most schools. What they do is they're used as a way of measuring one's capabilities. And goodness, we need to change that. So many of us don't come close to our capacity that God gave us because we are too afraid of making a mistake. We aren't focusing on designing our best selves, right? We're focusing on what the world wants us to be. So instead of looking at mistakes as a failure, I want you to take them as proof that you are trying, because mistakes are a sign that you're trying something new. I literally have it on postcards here, like, hey, mistakes are something new that you're doing, right? It doesn't mean anything about you as a person. So the next one is, learning new things is very difficult and very hard. So here's the thing. When we think of learning, what do we think of? We think of school, right? Back to school. Many of us have really exciting memories of school. Even if we did well academically, it's typically a place that we associate with growing pains, right? Dating and friendships and parties and whatever it is. And then for those of us who struggled in school, we had emotions of shame and that ever-present of feeling that we're too dumb. As we talk about in our communication series, that schools were designed for the emeralds, the pearls of the world, not sapphires and rubies. So the emeralds are ones who are like sitting down, being quiet, and pearls. And the sapphires are the ones who want to be loud, they want to have fun, they're the ones who are always in trouble. So learning the way our school system works now, it's hard for that half of the society, right? It's hard for those outgoing, loud people. I mean, how many of you were told in school to sit down and shut up? Yeah, okay? There's so many personalities out there. We shouldn't be limited, okay? So here's what I want you to do is, when you're approaching learning, is training your brain in a different way, okay? So if you're the kind of learner who does best by a book, like I'm a book learner, great. But if that doesn't work for you, why would you keep trying the same thing because it looks like everyone around you does it that way? Find ways that work best for you. For example, when I have clients who are motivated by fun and that constant change and excitement, do I give them a rigorous routine and schedule and diet, quote, diet plan to follow? No, because I know they're going to fail because that isn't fun to them. I mean, sometimes it's hard to learn new things, but when you learn new ways of how to learn based on your own personality type, it's going to be so much easier and so much more enjoyable, right? Just like someone who's got a rigorous personality, I'm not going to give them just random stuff and like, hey, let's just try this today. No, right? And here's the last one I want to touch on. It's a big one. The criticism of other people matters. Oh man, I can just remember back to school when someone I respected or someone I thought was popular said something to me, and it was just that biggest heartbreak, and it just stuck with me for years. I mean, who's with me, right? There's something that I read in a book over the past couple weeks, and it talked about Jim Carrey, and I want to open it up and read it for you, is that word for word. And actually, I put it up here too. So the person he was interviewing said, "Hey, Jim, like, why do you do what you do? You're such a unique actor, and you're just a bit extreme on camera," right? And what Jim said is, "I act that way because I want to give people who are watching permission to be themselves." Wow. The biggest travesty in the world is people preventing and limiting themselves from expressing who they really are because they're afraid of what other people think, right? Now, and he also elaborated on it in a commencement speech, and I will butcher the name of the university, but he said, "The purpose of my life has always been to free people from concern. How will you serve the world today? What do they need that your talent can provide? That's all you have to figure out. The effect that you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. Everything you gain in life will rot and fall apart, and all that will be left of you is what was in your heart." Isn't that absolutely amazing? Amazing. I mean, he is a little eccentric on camera, but he does have some pretty in-depth thoughts, right? I mean, think about that. We talk about that a lot here too. And since having children, I have learned, oh my goodness, I've learned so many things about myself, okay? And so many things about them. Guys, they are the fastest learners on the planet because they don't care what others think of them. They have no shame. They're goofy, crazy. They dress the way they do, whatever. Ever watch a little kid walk? They just keep going. They fall down. They don't feel embarrassed because all they know is they just want to walk. And I've said this before, but as we get older, we have such a hard time doing things. There comes a point where it's like, oh my gosh, we stop. Right? So the key is to learn how to let go of that fear of criticism. I know it's so much easier said than done, okay? I'm still working on aspects of it. But I mean, think about all the limiting beliefs and fears that we have around our health, okay? Creating that healthy lifestyle that you want and perhaps need, okay? It's scary. But here's the thing, do you know what's scarier? Living in the regrets, living in the pain, living a life that focuses on other people's opinions of us. People are going to doubt you. They're going to criticize you no matter what. Take it from me. I've heard so much over the years. But you'll never know your true potential until you break those unfair judgments that you play on your own self. I literally just posted something on Facebook today about the fact that the only person holding you back is yourself, or the only thing that's like the common denominator or something like that is about yourself. And I got a ton of comments on it. And it's not anyone else's job to like, love, or respect you. That's your job. Oh, that was good. Oh man, someone copy that. Okay, so really understanding these common limiting beliefs are lies. Okay, but it's essential in overcoming yourself. So when you convince yourself that any of those limiting beliefs are true, what you're doing is you're giving yourself an unnecessary burden to carry around. I mean, think about it. We burden ourselves daily with these thoughts that are typically not true, and it has such a huge effect on you and your life and those around you. So before we dive into next week's episode, I want to give you a couple things, other than what we just talked about in this week's episode and last, to try out, okay? So first, I want you to take a good look at some of the mistakes that you've recently made. Have you let those define you? And how are your feelings about those mistakes now changed after listening to this episode? And if you need to pause and take a moment, please do. Then what I want you to do is find a way to put something that you've recently learned into action. Like, for example, any of the things maybe that's I've been teaching you about health in our Facebook groups and on Instagram, or maybe even something that your kids taught you when they come home from school. Put that into action because, guys, around here, we are all about educating and empowering ourselves, and it's so incredibly important, okay? And then the last thing that I really want you to do is think about a situation where you allowed the opinions of others to sway your actions. And I'm going to cry because I've done it. Like, how long did it take you to get out of that funk? For me, it was a year for one of them. And now, how would you approach that same situation differently if the only opinion that mattered was yours? I think we all would respond a bit differently, wouldn't we? And remember, the more energy that you do put into changing yourself, the quicker that change will happen and you will get to your goals, okay? The only person you can change is yourself. So if you like this episode, please make sure to share it with others. Put it on social media, take a snapshot, tag us, and I really would love if you could write us a review on whatever platform you're listening to. That's how we get the word out there. That's how we help more people design the best of themselves to heal from the inside out. And I'm so excited to share with you next week, part 3, when we'll be talking about the method to our madness, motivation and purpose. Until next time, guys.